I play Special Operative Leo.
From the initial meetings, it was quite clear that the director and the production wanted to make a film that felt very grounded and real.
He's been developed and designed by the military. He is very skilled with weapons and technology.
Leo was a real process of exploration. Humanoid robots have been done so many times before that it's very difficult to come up with something that feels original.
In the scene, Harp first arrives to the base. I go to my locker, I take my shirt off, and I let him know that I'm not the average soldier.
Don't worry. I'm special enough for both of us.
We really needed that scene to stick with the audience all the way through the whole film, otherwise the whole basis of the entire movie falls apart. We ended up with the idea that he had a body that supported itself with this exoskeleton, and creating the illusion of him having a human body under his t-shirt. Technically there would be these electrical currents that go into this structure that contract and expand it so that he can faux muscle contraction and so on, so that he really feels believable. But then underneath is where his power comes from. And what we really wanted to work with was the feeling of negative space. His arms were very thin, and so if you think about how strong a crowbar, a crowbar is a very thin piece of metal, but you could lift a ton weight with it without a problem. Something that we had to do is really kind of amplify the reflections in certain parts of his body. Sometimes we'd actually bring some of the shading of his skin back on top as well to try and help ground it. It was really tricky, but at the same time we knew that ultimately would create something that was very interesting.
The advancement of the military in this movie shows that the military has gone to a more robotic warfare. So they've developed these robots called GUMPs, and the GUMPs are the first line of defense.
The real challenge with this was creating a world that felt a little more advanced than what we're experiencing today, but at the same time it couldn't feel like a full-on sci-fi.
There's a certain vocabulary that we had to create to go along with that. How do you use these big guns? How do these GUMPs move? How do these GUMPs attack?
These robots were part of the three main fractions. The US GUMPs obviously were very advanced, cutting-edge technology. The insurgent GUMPs, also cutting-edge, but from a Russian design line. When we first started designing these GUMPs, it became quite apparent that because we were taking the same inspiration for both the US GUMP and the insurgent GUMP, an issue could be that they feel very similar on screen. And in the context of the bank heist scene,
Okay.
where you've got really quick cuts between the GUMPs, you really need to understand what the geography of that moment is, otherwise you're not going to understand it. And if we didn't get it right, you might think that they were part of the same team and they were shooting each other. So animation language became something that was very important. To research, we would build these very blocky versions of them. We would build rudimentary rigs with them so that we could do animation tests and really understand how they move before we locked the design. So with the US GUMPs, we looked at how special forces moved and then really incorporated that into our choreography.
We had a great stunt team. Because I've done so many of those big CGI movies, there comes a point where you're standing there and it's like a green ball and you have to take the ball and act like it's something else.
They come out of the bank with the guards and then they really hunker their position. And that's where they stay throughout the scene. We thought, okay, what's a cool thing that you could do? Maybe they have a big 50 cal machine gun on their back that they can only use when they hunker down.
Something I need you to do for me.
Are you sure about this?
In the scene where Leo and Harp turn up to the bank, he makes an incision in the back of Leo after he asks to pull out this tracking device from his spine. Obviously, Hart would not be able to put his fingers into Anthony Mackie's actual back, so we knew very quickly that we'd need some sort of prosthetic to create a wedge of silicone that Hart could then put his fingers into. When Hart's fingers go in, they disappear, so we had to effectively rebuild his hands in CG in order to see his fingers still through his body. So a lot of what you see in the final picture is completely rebuilt from scratch. 75% of the film's shots are VFX shots. It's a big VFX movie. We were really lucky to have such a strong team that really pushed the whole thing forwards and make it what it was.
It's a really great time to where you can sit and enjoy the movie because it's such a unique story.
Check out Outside the Wire, only on Netflix.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the Netflix Film Club channel to get our latest exclusive videos. Plus, hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.